Live and online, it's Sleepless with Steve and the Movie Book Club with your host, Steve Pulaski.
Welcome to Sleepless with Steve. Without Steve. I love how we have to open it like that, and then like Steve's just not here. Unfortunately,
That's who they're here for. They're really here for.
Oh yeah, true. Yeah, they loved our Andor talk. Like they were just like, yes, these two again. I hope they're gonna talk more about Andor season 2 news from Star Wars Celebration, which is what we're gonna be talking about today. No, I'm kidding. Steve, unfortunately, is a bit under the weather. Throat is just killing him, and if you've ever done broadcasting with a sore throat, it sucks, and he does that as a career. So probably best to just rest his voice so he doesn't have to strain it more while talking about Super Mario Bros. And then complaining at the top of his lungs about Warner Bros. Discovery unveiling the new Max streaming service. But with you here tonight is myself, Joe Viso, and Dominic Guanzon, of course, in the blue polo. Dom, how you doing?
Doing all right. It is beautiful weather, which sounds very mundane to talk about, but dude, seasonal effectiveness disorder has to be a real thing because people are just coming out of their shell, man.
Oh yeah.
And it's gonna be good. It's gonna be a good summer.
Yeah.
I think. I'm hoping.
This is gonna be a great summer with I think the blockbuster season we got ahead of us. One, it's a whole summer of actual like movies that I think a lot of people are looking forward to, whether it be the Barbie movie, Oppenheimer, which both come out the same day. You have the comic nerds who are excited for Spider-Verse 2, which, is ever going to happen since that first one didn't do that good at the box office, but has been a hit at streaming home. There's just a bunch of movies this summer. Mission Impossible, Indiana Jones. A lot of people, I've been talking to throughout the time we've been doing this show. They keep messaging me every once in a while, like, did you review Indiana Jones yet? I'm like, it's not even out yet, but I'll let you know how it is when it gets here. But yeah, other than movies, man, it finally feels like the summer that, like, I don't know, after COVID and everything, 2021, I was still kind of like, do I really want to be around people? 2022, still feeling the same way. 2023, I don't like being in large crowds still, but at this point, I'm like, it is too good to pass up this beautiful, nice weather and not go outside and maybe go to a festival or something while I'm here. Like, I'm probably going to Lollapalooza this year. I don't know.
I've never been to a Lollapalooza, and from my mother's stories, I never will. It is my mother, who works as a nurse. Well, she formerly was a floor nurse. Now she just works in the bed management department. But yeah, every Lollapalooza just goes up. People trying to hop the fences. Yep. People. Toxic shock, alcohol poisoning, the stupidest shit you can imagine.
Oh, yeah.
People do it.
I've been to Riot Fest. You see that all the time there as well. The last Riot Fest, I actually almost had a panic attack because they only had one exit compared to previous years, which is they would open up 3 exits to get out. Instead, they funneled everybody through one street, and it was literally like putting my face up against somebody's back like I am with my phone right now. It was terrible. So I hope to never experience that again. I'm hoping Lollapalooza isn't the same. The lineup this year, just too many people I wanted to see that I'm probably going to go on either 1 or 2 days. But yeah, this summer it's looking good. Especially with the whole March last month in terms of weather just sucked. You had storms constantly. It was cold. It was frost, everything. Everything you hate about the Midwest weather, we experienced it throughout March.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah.
Every little bit, every little way.
Anyways, let's get on with the show here tonight. We got a lot to talk about regarding at least the Super Mario Bros. Movie.
Fucking Chris Pratt. All right, that's the only hater comment. We'll be supportive. We'll be supportive.
Yeah.
I took our one F-bomb too, preemptively.
Yeah, I care. I've used the F-bomb multiple times on this show. I've never been stopped. But if you were keeping up with what we were talking about last week, we were talking about how a few years back, 2 years ago, actually roughly around this same time too, I hosted a Fast and Furious 9 screening for free. I just invited people. AMC had like a little discount for A-list members. They're like, hey, host a screening at any of these theaters and blah blah blah. And I was like, oh hell yeah. And I did it because I was like excited that theaters were back open. I'm a big Fast and Furious fan, so I subjected people to unwillingly unwillingly
you really
sit
did.
through almost a 3-hour film. That's the 9th film entry to a franchise that majority of the people who went never seen. So you can probably assure they had a great time watching that. So I decided, okay, why not actually do it with something? Because after hosting that screening, I got I had a discount thing that I had to use by the end of 2023 that they gave me, where it was like host another private screening, because AMC's starting to get rid of it. If anybody wants to do those, by the way, they're getting rid of them by the end of this year. I was like, let's do it for a movie that I think people actually would want to see. And I decided to do it with Super Mario Bros. And let me get the photos ready here. You got to forgive me. I'm working on one monitor right now, so it might be a little slow.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah. But we went to go see the Super Mario Bros. Movie, as you can see here on this photo. We all dressed up like Mario Bros. Characters. That was the thing I asked the people. I said, your mission's free and everything, but please at least dress for the occasion. And you can see all the characters here. We have like 3 Luigis, 4 Marios, Toads, Toadette, Waluigi, Yoshi, Wario. And you have Dom over here with his great Shadow the Hedgehog shirt. You want to elaborate that on a little bit?
So I had been mulling through multiple costumes for Saturday, all of them equally stupid. One of them was a few. Let me go through all of them. Screw it. One of them was I was just gonna like take masking tape and just tape a copy of Mario Party to my face and just be like one-eyed the whole time, just like the shittiest costume. Another one was, I think, yeah, I was gonna buy some kind of like bi/pan shirt, like bisexual, pansexual pride shirt, flag design thing. Take 2 Nintendo Switch controllers, put them next to my face, and be like, "It's me. I'm the Switch." Another one was just tuxedo mask from Sailor Moon, and then there was tuxedo mask Baja Blast, which is just tuxedo mask from Sailor Moon, but Baja Blast themed. And then ultimately, I didn't have time for any of that because shit went down on Friday. Good, not good, but like everything's fine. Everything's fine. But I went to shout out to Emo Night in the city, hosted by the Emo Social Club.
Oh.
And I went there, spent a lot of time there. I'll say like 2 a.m, and then came back home, and then I just wound up hanging out with some people, and then time flew, and then we wound up, oh shit, we got to go. I got to drop people off at their homes. I did that. It's like shit, I don't have time to go back home to get whatever of those 4 costumes, I think. So then we wound up, Chelsea and I just wound up going to Woodfield Mall and just like Hot Topic. Let's just go to Hot Topic. And then I saw that shirt. I saw the Shadow the Hedgehog shirt, and I'm like, I don't know how, I'm doing it. I want this shirt. Best $26 I've ever spent.
And you can see Chelsea here in this photo rocking a Bowser t-shirt. Literally, I think from the movie too, from what it looks like.
Yes, I think it was sponsored. Or it's like it had the logo for the movie.
And then, of course, we got Dom over here with Shadow the Hedgehog. One little thing, Dom, can you elaborate on the squeegee and like the hoodie thing? Because that was a picture I just showed as well.
Random shit I got from my trunk. And I was like, hey, I'm Chris Pratt Mario. And then it's just like the most inaccurate Mario costume possible.
Yeah.
Just slightly like color themed a little bit, not really. You don't even see it. I had one knee pad on for that costume. And then eventually I was just like, dude, screw this. They're probably not even gonna let me like take the squeegee inside. They probably might have. I don't know.
I don't know, man. You know what?
But
the best thing about dressing up was actually the amount of love we got entering the theater. I had friends go to concessions that were dressed as Wario, Waluigi, and Yoshi, and some like 2 people at concessions who were working there were like, "You guys just made my day. I fucking love Waluigi and Wario, like
that's awesome
and everything." We had family.
I got some shit for the Shadow shirt. I was surprised by that. People were giving me side eye. I'm like, dude.
Oh man.
Calm down.
We had families coming out. Unfortunately, I don't have any photos of it. I wish I took some photos of it. But we had families coming out of the IMAX screening as soon as we were coming in at like 6:50.
Mm.
Families were exiting and taking photos with us, thinking that we were paid by AMC to be there.
Ah! That's awesome.
Yeah, I know. It was a really fun time. I would love to keep talking more about Shadow the Hedgehog, like I'm showing right here, is at his E3 statue where he's holding a gun at the back of somebody's head right here. But we'll talk about more about Shadow when we talk about Sonic the Hedgehog 3 in 2025 or whatever. Anyways, before the movie, we had trailers. We were all cheering for the Barbie trailer to come on, which was a lot of fun. We were just cheering for any trailer that was coming on. It was a great time all around, vibe-wise, with everybody in the theater. It was a very fun time.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm really glad I went. I was telling people about it, and they were like, "Oh shit, they're gonna do the same thing for Barbie." I was like, "No, I don't think so. I think that's all sold out." Because the reason why you went to that theater is because of that specific request, right?
Yes.
Yeah, because you don't normally go to that theater, do you?
No, I mean that is my theater I usually go to.
Oh, okay.
The one I did Fast and Furious at was kind of like a midway point for a lot of people. And I was like, this will be good. Like, it's about 20 minutes for me, 20 minutes for them, 30 minutes for this person. So it's not like people are really going out of their way to get to this theater, which was located in Woodfield. The one we went to was located way farther down. It was like 20 minutes away from Woodfield.
Got it.
The one we went to go see Super Mario Bros. At. That is my usual theater I go to in terms of AMC's. And that was the only one that's left actually doing these private screenings. I checked the city where we went to school, which is Naperville. I checked Woodfield again. I checked a bunch of theaters. I was like, all right, I guess this is the only one. Okay, that's fine. So whatever. But I mean, am I down to do it for Barbie? Yes. But like I did this like because I had the discount and I was like I could totally pay for it myself just as like a little fun treat for myself.
So you pay? Are you comfortable saying how much you paid, or do you want to just message me?
I'll admit it. I mean, I'm not trying to flex here or anything. I wanted to do this since last year when they announced the movie and everything. I was like, this will be a fun one to do. So I literally set aside $5 a paycheck ever since they announced this movie.
That's nice.
And I was like, okay, and then whatever the difference is, whatever. And I'm like, wait a minute, I have that coupon from doing Fast and Furious last time. It only cost me $150. That's it.
$150. What was the coupon?
The coupon took off $100. It was gonna be $250.
Oh, $100?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
They gave it to me because like you did it during the pandemic and they were trying to incent you to do it again, but it didn't expire until 2023. So I guess they were just like kind of hoping like people keep doing it. But like I said, it seems like the program is just dying down because every AMC used to do it. Now it's just one that's like at least within like a 20-mile radius of me. But yeah, I mean, I would love to do it for Barbie, but I think that one I would have to be like, all right, we all have to like kind of like either split some costs or something. I'll see. Like
I was gonna offer to split some costs with some people. Definitely, yeah. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for providing that experience for everyone. We had a great time. Chelsea was so proud. She started the Barbie chant.
And I heard it coming from down there. I'm like, is it you or her?
Yeah. Yeah. But we'll move on to the movie. But that was great.
Anyways, yeah. Let's talk about it, man. Probably one of the most anticipated movies for people. Oh God, excuse me. Probably one of the most anticipated movies for people ever since it was announced that it was, they were actually gonna do it. It was gonna be animated. Is the Super Mario Bros. Movie. This was announced back in 2021 on a Nintendo Direct. If you don't know what those are, it's basically where Nintendo does kind of like a live stream of upcoming games and everything. But they did a special occasion where they talked about media that they want to cover. And they announced some ideas for TV shows. We'll be getting a Zelda TV show and stuff. But they said the first big project that they want to get off their plate and see how well it does is a Mario movie. And I'm not going to lie, I was so excited. And then my heart immediately dropped because they announced the studio they're pairing up with, which was Illumination. I'm not a fan of Illumination. Never have been. I'm not saying I haven't liked any of their movies. I like Secret Life of Pets. Even though I don't like the Minions, I do like Despicable Me Too. There's just something about the second one that I find to be funny. And that's really just about it when it comes to their movies. I wasn't a big fan of Sing. I don't like their version of The Lorax or The Grinch. I usually find the way they do movies to be very like by the numbers, like, you know, okay, we got to hit this point for an animated film, then we have to hit this point, then we have to hit this point. And then when it came time for like their own original stuff, like Despicable Me, when they weren't adapting something, uh, that's when I think you got their weaker stuff, because they just went for just the lowest. I don't want to say denominator, because they are, like, you know, catered towards kids, but that's really what they felt like. They felt like movies that were just catered towards kids. They didn't really do much other than be like, let's just do fart jokes, have these little yellow nut sacks run around and make like poopy sounds and whatnot or whatever. So I was a little bit worried, and then the casting was announced, and a lot of people had a lot to say about this. Chris Pratt as Mario, I'm sure you've known by now. I'm not going to go any further than that. It's been talked about to death already. Some casting to get more positive light, like Bowser, played by Jack Black. It was a lot riding on this movie, believe it or not. Because back in 1993, we did have a Mario Bros. Movie, and it bombed, and it ruined Nintendo's taste to ever do anything, television, movie, anything outside of a video game ever again. So this movie was basically them dipping their toe back into the water of film and TV industry to see how well it would go. You know, they saw how well it worked for Detective Pikachu, and they saw how well it worked for Mario's rival, which is Sonic. He's had 2 sequels at this point. So yeah, let's get right into it. Dom, how about you start off actually with your initial thoughts?
Just the fact that this is an Illumination product. I know a lot of people are going to be there's like they're ready for like, oh, these gosh darn film critics. They always want to harp on Illumination, but the truth is, it if you look at their filmography on Wikipedia, it does ring true.
Yeah.
I consider Illumination to be the quintessential American animation studio, and that's not a compliment. I, like, even more so than Disney, even more so than Marvel Studios specifically, I consider Illumination to be everything. What it is mainstream, what people think of with American animation, and
Yeah.
I don't like that.
I would even say this actually, before the movie started, they had an Illumination like film reel of like
That was weird.
all the
That
movies
was
they've
weird.
done, and then the Thanksgiving movie they're doing, which is about ducks or something. I don't know what the hell
At
is going
least
on. But
at least Disney can hide that. Like,
Yeah.
not at least Disney pretends to hide it by like saying like, oh, here's a trailer for Marvel, here's a trailer for Star Wars. It's the same freaking thing. But you know, yeah. And their style has always bothered me, and it really is the same thing here in Mario, where it's just incredibly detailed, incredibly like hyper detailed and shiny and bright, and it doesn't have like a style to it, a style except for its own, which is except for the Illumination style, and I do not like it. I'm sure if you did a deep dive into like the difference between Secret Life of Pets and The Grinch and Hop, I don't know, but like it really does all ring this. At least
Yeah.
Pixar, despite having a specific style, changes it up to enough of a degree.
Yeah.
Um, but Illumination just does not seem to have that. And first and foremost, as an animated product, the Super Mario Brothers movie suffers from a lot of what Illumination suffers, which is hyper realistic. Not like, yeah, you know what? Honestly, I'll go, yeah, the hair. I'll just start off there. Let's go into animation for a second here. The hair is so freaking detailed, and I will compliment it on its technical achievement, but that's hardly saying anything in 2023. And it got to the point where it was really distracting me. Like when it got to Donkey Kong, I'm like, damn, Donkey Kong's hair looks really, really detailed. I can see everything. Peach, I'm like, I can see every strand of hair on Peach. And I know that sounds like a really weird thing to start off here, but I feel like it's indicative of everything, which is that with the Illumination style, which is that it is just so, it just takes up so much of my attention because they are focusing so hard on it. And it's like, you really think this is how animation works, right? The more detailed we get it, the more we can get into the more we can show Mario's psoriasis. Like, then yeah, dude, we're gonna get the Oscar in this way. And it's like, I mean, you might, but that's the Oscars problem. But like, that's not what good animation makes. Not that I'm the foremost expert on it, but if you can like abstract that to a degree, then that's to me that's what makes good animation, where you can abstract it, you can come whittle it down to a specific style, if not for that character, or if not for that franchise, then at least for that movie, and if not for that movie, then at least for that character, on an individual basis. Watch, the lead up to all of this, the trailers, right? So we saw like Into the Spider-Verse. Okay, dude, how many movies are now ripping off the Spider-Verse
A
style?
lot. Like
It
that
like
that movie literally like
Puss in Boots, uh
Teenage Mutant Ninja
uh
Turtles.
Ninja Turtle, oh, especially Ninja Turtles, which frankly does look fun,
It does, yeah.
but
I'm
it
not
is
I'm not
all
saying
ripping
those
off.
movies do not look good. I love Puss in Boots. It was one of the best anime movies last year.
I'm sure it was
But
good.
it a lot of people are like, "Oh man, I really wish every studio wasn't trying to be DreamWorks." And then Spider Verse comes along, and everybody's like, "Yeah, everybody's doing Spider Verse thing." I'm like, "All right, give it 5 years," and everybody's be like, "Man, I really wish people weren't being trying to be Spider Verse all the time."
Yeah, but I mean, kudos to Spider-Verse, and they can
Yeah,
own that style because they started it, or rather, like
popularized
punched
it.
it into the
Yeah.
mainstream. Right, right, right. But yeah, in terms of just wider anime, I and pivoting now to just the movie itself, Super Mario Brothers and Mario as a whole, you're right, has been pining for a true cinematic revival.
Yeah.
And this movie did it correctly. And I
Yes.
choose that word carefully. It did it correctly. It got the designs, even though they're not carbon copies from the games, which they should not have done, and I'm glad they didn't. They got the designs correct. They got the feel correct. They got the music pretty damn well.
Yeah.
Actually, I won't even say corrected. They got it pretty damn
The
well,
the
except for
score the score
a very major complaint, which I'll get to later.
Okay.
But yeah, Joe, yeah,
I was gonna say this. I'll talk about the animation here. When it comes to Illumination, the issue of I always had with them is the very much like they use a lot of the same assets in their animation. If you look at Despicable Me, all the houses are exactly the same. If you watch Sing, there are multiple versions of the same animal in the crowd and everything, wearing the exact same clothes and whatnot. So with Mario, like I guess they
like a
got
FIFA
yeah,
stadium audience. Yeah.
literally like that. That's actually a great example. Luckily with Mario, it's like, all right, well, yeah, I mean Koopas do look the same. It's the green shell and everything,
Yeah,
so
they can play into that.
and they can play into it. So I I was fine with the animation. I actually was. I actually think in terms of like animation wise, this was probably Illumination's best one yet, like in terms of just like actually animating and everything, because I think Nintendo actually told them you can't just do what you do all the time with Despicable Me and everything. You gotta at least try here. And it shows. Like, I mean, I know Dom very much was focusing on that hyper realism with the hair and everything, and that could just be the style. Illumination was like, this is what we're gonna do with it. We think it will appeal to most people and everything in that sort of way. Um, I will say, like, it at least what bails them out probably for me, and maybe I would have like felt the same way in some regards, is the fact that it is still at the end of the day Mario's, like the Super Mario world. It is that. It is the vision of that. It is the look of that. So it's like, while like yeah, like stuff can look hyper realistic as you're saying, for me it was like it didn't feel too out of place, because at the end of the day, it's like I'm seeing that Italian man actually in his overalls and everything. I get to see Rainbow Road. I get to see this. I get to see that. I'm not saying that as like a fan. I'm saying that as like this is actually like actually making me feel like I am in the Mushroom Kingdom in some sort of way. And how creative they even got with their own interpretation of the Mushroom Kingdom, where it felt like, even though it literally looked like Nintendo World at Universal, wink, wink, nod, nod, it did really feel cool to be in that world going around the Mushroom Kingdom and even eventually Peach's Castle as well.
I should have known that as soon as they announced the park, the Universal Park. I'm like, I should have realized that it was going to be Illumination because it's Universal,
Yeah.
right?
Well, I mean, I was hoping
But
for DreamWorks because they're owned by Universal as
oh,
well.
that's true. I don't know. You could have gone either way. I guess, yeah, DreamWorks. But regardless, uh, you're right that the animation style of Illumination does play well into a video game franchise, and They really made sure that this was, without being meta with it,
Hmm.
they very much made this a video game movie to the point where you were like watching like speed running with these like side view shots of like Mario doing these tricks and
Yeah.
stuff, which, you know what, was cool to a degree. I think in the they didn't they played it just enough
Hmm.
where it didn't get too. There was one scene, particularly the training scene, where I thought, okay, this kind of isn't doing much for me here, but
It
it
wasn't for
serves a
me
purpose.
either. I was honestly getting really bored at that scene by like 10
I think the whole
seconds in.
theater was, yeah. But regardless, putting this movie into context of everything around it, and I promise we'll get into the movie itself,
Yeah,
but you'll
yeah.
be surprised how there won't be too much to talk about, but maybe. But in context, the Super Mario Brothers movie really is Shigeru Miyamoto's push and Nintendo's push to like break back into
Yeah.
the American, the film in the film context, American mainstream and just a global
Yeah,
mainstream.
global mainstream, I
And
would say in general, yeah.
it really isn't a surprise that, you know, he went with Illumination,
Hmm.
that they went with a very safe storyline. They went with a very American safe story and presentation
Yeah.
of this story of this film. That it makes perfect sense. You know, New Yorker, fish out of water, gets transported to a magical place, has to literally save it. It's the most, blueprint American adventure movie with the most, or Western, I should say, Western American adventure movie with the most
Hmm.
blueprint video game, video game of all time. It's freaking Shigeru Miyamoto. He's practically, the Walt Disney
Video
of
games.
video games,
Yeah.
or that's a very basic bitch way to describe it. I'll even
But
choose
it's
another one.
accurate.
He's like the if Miyazaki is anime, then Shigeru Miyamoto is for Nintendo,
Oh
for
man.
video games, I should say. And but honestly, like it works for a reason. I say it for a
Yeah.
reason. And all those kind of big names, all those firsts, all those foundational elements, all those historic legacy things come together in the Super Mario Brothers movie, and they did it correctly. I was not disappointed. As a whole product, I was having a bad time. I was having a pretty damn good time, and I actually have to kind of counterbalance it because we watched it together
Mm.
with a group full of
I know.
uh,
I had to separate
cosplayers.
myself
Yeah,
from the experience that we were having in the theater to like, how am I feeling about this movie? And like, I guess you want to just start diving into the actual movie at this point, then.
let's do it. You go for it. Yeah.
I'll say this initial impression. I like this movie. I had a lot of fun with it. Some of my criticisms may seem like I don't like this movie, but that is because I'm a big Mario fan. There's a reason why I chose to host this one and not like Oppenheimer or something. I'm gonna use the F word again. I fucking love Mario. I grew up with it. I had the GameCube. I had Super Mario Sunshine. It is my favorite franchise. Mario Kart.
You're not like other guys.
No, yeah, I'm not like other guys. All right. Mario Kart 8 is probably like it might be my favorite game of all time. It is something I like. I know there's like games like Red Dead and The Last of Us, which really break the wall of like it being a video game to becoming like in like some way art and storytelling coming together in video game format. But there's just sometimes I just like to, go vroom vroom and throw a banana peel and everything. Like, it's just like I just have that balance myself. I do love my Red Dead Redemption 2, and I do love my Mario Kart 8. For me though, and with this movie, my biggest worry was, like I said, Illumination, because to me it's like I look at DreamWorks, and DreamWorks will spend time developing characters, developing a story, developing a world. Illumination never focuses on that. Illumination is just about let's get in there, tell some jokes, and get out. And I will say this, in some ways, that actually kind of worked for Illumination with this movie, because one of the positives I'll say with this movie is that I'm glad it takes place in the Mushroom Kingdom. I'm glad it's not Mario coming out of the Mushroom Kingdom into the real world like it was for Sonic. I'm glad it takes place there, and I'm glad they don't take time to actually explain stuff like, okay, so why are Koopa Troopas turtles, and why are Goombas mushroom sized? Like, I'm glad we don't focus on that. Glad they don't focus on like, okay, how comes there's like floating blocks and everything, or how this world works and everything. the actual idea of like it being a fish out of water and Mario just has to be like, I just have to run with this because I'm trying to save my brother from Bowser who's been captured by him. It just one, it helps the movie move along at a brisk 1 hour and 30-minute pace, but two, it just works for the Mario world because it's kind of how all of us were introduced to that world. We just picked up, we hit star or something, you just heard do 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 do, and you saw this mushroom-looking thing coming at you, and you had to figure out what the hell to do. So I kind of like that the video game adaptation of this is just essentially the same thing. They're just gonna throw you in, you're gonna roll with it. There's not a real explanation to this world. We're not gonna spend time explaining it. It's just how this world operates and works, and they acknowledge that in the movie. You're kind of the Mario is your avatar with it, just kind of be like, okay, I mean, there's just floating blocks here. There's talking mushroom-headed people. I'm just gonna roll with this. That to me was probably the best parts about the movie was just like how much it did really just embrace the video game and actually made it work for the most part. Where that was like another worry I had is like, are they gonna pay too much fan service? And in some ways they do with how many Easter eggs are in this movie, but they don't do like what Star Wars has been doing lately, in my opinion, which is like, hey guys, look, it's the thing from Star Wars Rebels right here. It's centered in the screen. It's like a little background thing. There's tons of them, and like it distracts me every once in a while because I'm a fan. But I had to keep telling myself, okay, but if I wasn't a fan, I would have right over my head. It would have went right over my head. Tom, go ahead. I'll let you talk, and then we'll cut to intermission.
It's a good time, but part of me laments, what could have been at the same time as well. But you can't get too hung over that. You can't get too hung over that because
they
the
did
Mario
a good job at the end of the day too. I can't take that away.
They honestly did a solid, decent job, and I honestly think that's more Nintendo's doing.
Yeah,
Nintendo carrying that way because I wonder if like I got to imagine, I like to dream that the Illumination storyboard artists or the writers were like, hey, what if we had like Donkey Kong shows up and then he like smacks his butt for like 5 minutes and then everyone just laugh at him. And then Shigeru Miyamoto's just like looking at him, just like, he doesn't speak English, right? And he's like, just slaps him across the face, slaps in Japanese. But yeah, this is a kind of a straightforward movie, and I'm honestly here for it, as we keep saying. The performances, you know what? Let's break down the performances after, but I think what I could lament about this movie is that the Mario story, there hardly is any in the games. Mm-hmm. The characterization of Mario, there's hardly any. There's hardly any. So when people say Chris Pratt's, and we'll get to Chris Pratt's interpretation of Mario is very like kind of, flat or straightforward. I'm like, okay, well, how do you characterize freaking Mario? The one thing I did enjoy, let me say this about the character. The one thing I did enjoy about the characterization of Mario here is that they gave him one specific trait. A lot of traits, brave, stands up for his brother, headstrong, whatever. One specific trait, which is that he does not give up.
Yeah.
And I thought that was actually pretty damn clever writing because that's us.
That is us.
That's the player.
Yeah.
The only characteristics you're going to get from Mario, aside from just the Italianness and the energeticness or whatever, is what you get from the player, from someone as blueprints. Like, well, could you characterize Gordon Freeman? No. Could you characterize, I don't know, Master Chief? Kind of not really.
Oh, they tried.
The TV show tried and did not. But yeah, the one thing with Mario's characterization that I did appreciate, and it's a constant throughout the whole story here, is that he does not give up because we as players do not give up because we put in cheat codes because we're not good at the game. But that was one thing I did appreciate as a story here. And you know what? Let's get to the cast after this.
Yeah. We're going to take a quick sponsored intermission. We'll be right back talking about the cast of the Super Mario Bros. Movie. Stay right here on Sleepless with Steve. back and better than ever. You're back with Sleepless with Steve. We're talking about the Super Mario Bros. Movie. Steve, unfortunately, isn't with us here tonight. He's a bit under the weather, but that's not going to stop us from talking about probably one of the most anticipated movies of the year. Before we went on the intermission, Dom was talking about just his overall thoughts of the film. I'm going to let Dom continue here, and then we're going to talk about basically what we thought about the initial cast. Because as much as we never really focus on cast too much with a lot of blockbuster movies, we're kind of like, oh yeah, they were good. But this was like, they literally did a Nintendo Direct for the cast alone. So I feel like it's warranted here to talk about each person.
Yeah, I think that ultimately this is a product, and I keep saying the word product through this whole review because it's hard not to. It's something as hyper commercial as this. It's hard not to describe it as such, and I say that kind of insultingly. But at the end of the day, I paid for it. Well, actually, Joe paid for it, but I would have paid for it, and I do appreciate it. And I am curious to see what the next story holds and what direction they take it. It's kind of one of those things where it's like I don't give a care in the world about the story really. What I care about is how the studio handles the story. It's kind of like with them. Well, it's kind of like Marvel's problem these days, where it's like I don't care about the characters or the story at this point anymore. I'm just curious to see where the studio, where Kevin Feige takes the story. You're thinking about the author. You're not really thinking about the story itself.
Because there's so many places you could go after this with Mario. Believe it or not, as much as we're like, there is no story with the games, there is a lot of games to choose from. And even in here, they kind of took, I would say the original, like, run of the games where it's Bowser wanting to marry Peach and everything. And then they were like, let's splice a little Mario Kart in there. So it's like, okay, is the next one going to be a sports movie? Like, are we going to get Mario Tennis?
Well, totally. And like, honestly, another thing I'll say about this, the last thing I'll say about the story is that as a foundational element, this was effective.
Yeah.
As a foundational element for 25 movies after this, they didn't dark world it. They did dark universe it. They effectively told a straightforward story, a blueprint as bare bones as freaking you could take from Star Wars Episode 4 or Lord of the Rings. I'm sure right? You could do the parallels there. But you know what? Let's get to the juicy part of it, Joe. If you wanted to say one more thing.
Yeah. There is one thing in terms of story here that I did enjoy because it is basically like Mario's out of water. He's getting trained to operate in this world and become the hero that this world deserves. It's the story we've seen done and done again, but one storyline I really wish we saw more of was actually Mario and Luigi. And I'll talk about it more when we talk about the cast as well.
That's a good point.
But I was really I was loving actually the first 10 minutes of this movie where they're in Brooklyn.
Really?
Yeah.
I was so. I didn't hate it, but it was interesting.
I thought for the longest time we always see these two as brothers, but we don't really see them interact other than like, Mario's brave and Luigi's scared. And to actually see them like, trying to run this business together of plumbing services and everything. I could have done without the whole dog thing where they were fighting a dog and whatnot. I was like, okay, we could have done without that.
That was like some Secret Life of Pets shit.
It really was. It was like a deleted scene from Secret Life of Pets. Literally, I think that dog was from that movie too. They might have just stolen an asset from there. Who knows? But the stuff back at home with their family and everything, and when they they're alone together talking about they're gonna be supportive of one another and whatnot. I was actually really digging that, and I really wish we got more time with Mario and Luigi in this movie. And that's mainly due to, and I'm going to transfer into the cast here, I actually thought Chris Pratt and Charlie Day were actually great as the two, big characters of this movie, that being Mario and Luigi, the actual brothers. I was not really looking forward to Chris Pratt as Mario. The trailers came out, and I thought, okay, I mean, he sounds all right. Let's see the whole product. They must have done either recordings after the trailer happened. They might have cut out some lines because I actually thought his performance was pretty good. They actually opened the movie addressing the whole Italian accent thing, which I thought was handled pretty funny. I also did like that he is more of an American, American Italian from Brooklyn and everything. Same thing goes for Luigi, and actually really enjoyed the chemistry that him and Charlie Day had as brothers. Anytime they were on screen together, like I said, I actually really felt that brotherly love. For the first 10 minutes, and unfortunately they do get separated throughout the majority of this movie, but when they come back together, it hit home again. I was like, you know what, I'm hoping with this next one they're together throughout the whole movie. What about you? What'd you think of let's get the big one out of the way. What was your impression of Pratt?
So my problem with just Chris Pratt in general is that kind of like how Illumination is indicative. The problems with them is indicative of like the whole animation mainstream problem as a whole. Chris Pratt is kind of the same thing with voice acting specifically, that craft, which is that you just kind of shove a bunch of big name film stars in there and they can do an accent kind of decently, or do some acting. This is particularly egregious with other Illumination products such as Sing. I think that's the worst of it.
Sing is the worst of it for sure.
Oh my god. I get the whole movie is just an excuse to sing
numbers,
songs,
yeah.
but like it could be a little more artistic about it. I don't know. But for Chris Pratt as a whole, he did decent. He did solid. I won't say great, but I thought he did solid with it. Um, did the job in a kind of blue collar plumber kind of way, I guess you could say. But the thing is, it not upsets me, but it kind of makes me go, we could have gotten something else out of this with someone who could some real voice act. And there are actual voice actors on this roster. First and foremost, the actual voice of Mario, Charles Martinet.
I get why they didn't use him. Like, it makes sense.
You know what? What? Go ahead. Why do you get it?
Because to me, it's like we enjoy that voice when we get doses of it with a Yahoo, a Yippee. Could I really deal with a whole movie? Like, imagine those training sequences with that high pitched voice constantly going off and off and off. Because I don't know about you, I get frustrated when like I'm getting damaged in Mario and everything, and like hearing like ow, and like hearing that for 10 minutes straight while also dealing with the needle drops in this movie too. Probably would have gotten under my skin a bit more. I would have been like, maybe we should have actually done a different way of doing this. I'm not saying Charles Martinet couldn't voice Mario, because he voices Mario's dad in this movie. And he does.
He can do voices. He can do actual voice acting besides Mario.
Yeah, I just didn't want the actual. I should say it like that. Actually, I would have been fine if Manette would have done the voice. I just don't want the actual Mario yippee voice the entire time. I want it to sound natural, like kind of how they took the approach with this movie.
Yeah. And if you're saying, oh, Charles Martinet is way too old to voice a younger, like 20-year-old Martinet. No, he's a voice actor.
Yeah,
they can do that. The voice of Spike Spiegel from, did I say that right?
Spike Spiegel.
Cowboy Bebop. Yeah. The main dude from Cowboy Bebop. Spike Spiegel?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, Spike Spiegel.
Oh God, I'm blanking. He's like the coolest mother effer of all time.
Yeah.
And
Steve Blum.
Steve Blum, who voices him, is like 50 years old, and he's just like he looks like this schlub. All love, no offense. He looks like this schlubby, middle-aged, like suburban dude from Naperville. It looks like he could go to Ribfest, and the year that Huey Lewis and the News went, that's when he got the most turnt. Like, he looks like that, and he can voice the coolest mother effer of all time. That's the power of a true voice actor.
Yeah.
Like a true cut their teeth doing voice acting. Now, you could say the same thing for Anya Taylor-Joy, for Charlie Day. The same. Chris Pratt, I think, is the most of my criticism there, but for the other two, they did all right, and it's kind of like that. But there are exceptions. There are notable exceptions. First and foremost, probably the biggest one out there is the quintessential voice of the Joker, aka Mark Hamill. He is one of those rare, film stars, big name stars, but then we're able to transition into genuine, true blue voice acting. Yeah. And you have some other people here, such as Kevin Michael Richardson as the voice of Kamek, who's doing a great Peter Lorre impression.
Oh my God. Yes.
Oh my God. That was awesome. Perfect. A lot of these characters we have never really heard beyond their grunting or saying their own name,
or just
in the games.
Like, that's it.
But hearing the actual flesh out of true lines, paragraphs, and whatever, that's like, okay, they actually nailed it here. Keegan-Michael Key as Toad. It's like very effective Toad.
Yeah.
Toad is probably the most annoying sounding character, in my opinion, out of all the characters in Mario in the games. But to actually have lines, Keegan-Michael was actually, I'm sure they pitched him up as well. I don't think he can do that line like
He
just in
did
front
it.
of you.
What was it? He went on Jacksepticeye's YouTube channel. They played
Oh,
Mario Kart.
can he do the voice exactly
It
like
is
that?
pitch. It is pitch. He admitted
Okay,
that.
okay.
He says
That's
pitch,
fine.
but
That's fine.
he gets close to it, where it's like, oh my god, like
Yeah.
even if they didn't pitch it, it would have been fine. But
Yeah.
pitching it just perfects it.
And there's no cheating. There's absolutely no cheating in pitching voices for the final product. I'm not like I don't think actual voice actors will have that opinion. It's only like fucking
Yeah,
dumbass
I think he
purists.
called it like his nasally white guy voice, like it's like as like the Toad voice.
I mean, Fred Armisen. All right, cool, whatever.
as Cranky
But
Kong, right?
yeah, sure. I actually thought it was Larry David. I forgot Fred Armisen was in it. And I thought it was Larry David
would have been a better Cranky Kong, honestly, because I wasn't a fan of Cranky Kong in this movie. I was like, he's whatever. Like, I love Fred Armisen.
Dude, Larry David, if Larry David did Cranky Kong, and I would have loved to have heard like the 2-hour raw uncut footage of them like explaining to them like, I'm King Cranky Kong of the what? They're on a cart. And then it's just like 2 hours of them explaining the scene to him, and it's like, so you're on Rainbow Road, and it's like, no.
Oh, Rainbow Road, okay.
But the person who steals the show, without a doubt, and we never had any doubt whatsoever, it was Jack Mother effing Black, who, despite all the adjustments the characters had to make for like a full feature film, he was the most accurate. Let me make that clear. Jack Black. Bowser's interpretation of this story here in this story is 1000% accurate to the games.
Yeah.
Specifically the Mario and Luigi handheld games.
Yep.
If you've ever played those, 1000. So if anyone's complaining about him playing on like a piano and like he's like doing these ballads and he's being over the top and it's like that's not like the character. No, that is 1,000,000% Bowser. That is game accurate, my friend.
Yep. I thought he actually gave that character a lot of he really fleshed that character out with his performance. His performance is probably the best in the movie. I would say Charlie Day as Luigi was probably my next favorite. I know you weren't too hot on that one. I actually really liked him as Luigi.
I wasn't hot, but I wasn't cold. Yeah.
But I have to agree. Jack Black really took the character of Bowser and really gave it something. If there's anybody in this movie that really turned the character and made it into something, it's him. It really feels like he really like enjoys the source material, playing it with his kids back at home and everything, because he's a big gamer himself and whatnot, and that he just knew like how to approach Bowser, from the singing to the moments where he has to actually be like kind of intimidating at points too, where I have to give like the opening scene with him taking down the penguin army. I thought was like, that was actually kind of cool. And then we get the more comedic stuff later, which I thought was great, where it's ultimately revealed like, oh, are we gonna use the star to like take over all the kingdom? He's like, nah, I'm using it to marry Peach. Like, everybody in the army's like, wait, what? Like that's been our conquest the whole time, is a wedding. I actually really enjoyed what they did with if there was the best writing in this movie to me is the brotherly love of the Mario Bros, and of course I would say Bowser. I was at first, I wasn't about Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong, and you and I kind of talked about this on the way out of the movie. And the longer I thought about it, I was like, you know what? The way they did Donkey Kong in this movie, his voice actually worked. Him being this like frat bro, like ape, like party boy for the crowd and everything.
That's fine. Just don't make it Seth Rogen.
That
was
thing.
my problem. He was the worst of the worst because he wasn't even trying.
At the end of the day, I come back to it, and it's like, he even said it in interviews leading up to it. He's like, I'm not doing a voice. I don't do voices. It's just going to be me and Donkey Kong. And it's just like, I kind of looked at it, it's like, okay, maybe I just need another movie with you, but like, I like the interpretation of Donkey Kong in this movie, and in some ways Seth Rogen worked, but then he'll break it by like doing his iconic laugh, and it's just like, all right, well now it's just like, I just feel like it's not Donkey Kong, it's just Seth Rogen in a gorilla suit from like SpongeBob or something.
I'm not hating on Seth Rogen.
I love
in
Seth
general.
Rogen actually too.
Yeah. He's perfect. He's great. But like, and like if Seth Rogen had done nothing creatively in his life and was his first ever job in movies was for this role, I would say it would be a great voice. But the problem is it's Seth Rogen doing Seth Rogen, and there is context there. And and they full frontal acknowledge it with the laugh. He does the laugh.
They do.
And it's
that
like,
laugh,
okay,
and it happens
whatever.
in the scene they introduce him into. It's like that laugh basically just told you this is gonna be it the rest of the movie. You're either gonna ride with this voice or you're not.
And it's just strange because they have, well, it's not strange. I know why they did it, but it doesn't hurt, but it like irks me a little bit because you've got other great voice actors and actresses like Jessica I can't say the name, DeCiccio, I can never say it, Reno Romano, John DiMaggio, right? Scott Menville, who I didn't even know, but he's been voice acting since the 80s, and he did the Blue Shell, the Koopa Blue Shell.
Oh yeah,
like,
Robin. Yep. Yeah.
He's like, yeah, Blue Shell, and then he just hammers down with the Blue Shell. I thought that was a great reference.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
I don't care how on the nose that was. That's exactly what I want on the nose.
I'll say this about, I love this actress to death. She's been in like some of my favorite films of the year. Last year she was in 2 of them. I thought Anya Taylor-Joy as Peach though was just kind of like whatever. Like, and I love what they did with Peach, but I just was like, I would have taken anybody.
It's not even her performance. It's not even her performance. I appreciate that they now you could say the same thing about Mario being high pitched. The worst of it would have been Princess Peach being high pitched.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And like so this is Princess Peach has been voiced by a plethora of actresses. There's videos on it. Yeah. One of them being the voice of Cortana. Did you know she was voiced by Cortana?
No, I did not actually.
From like 90 something to like 2005, she was voiced by Jen Taylor.
Oh wow.
But regardless, I thought her performance was fine, even earnest. The character though just kind of did nothing. That's another sore spot for me, is that there was a woman in this movie. No, I'm kidding. The other sore spot was that, no, I will say this in the whole feminism thing. Princess Peach's characterization in the games has kind of been nothing.
Yeah.
And they've tried to reinvent her in the past decade or decade and a half by just having her be generic badass female who can fight for herself, which I'm kind of sick of. You know? I've been sick of it for a while. It's like, can you give her like a real story? Give her, and I thought they were going to.
And I thought they were going to. They actually seemed like they were gonna do it in this movie. It was like, okay, finally, let's actually flesh out Princess Peach, and they never touch on it again.
She's a human too, and she finally feeds another human. They can play into that loneliness, that sense of belonging, despite being a head of state, right? But for all these creatures that she can't relate to.
There's somebody right now like, guys, it's the fucking Mario movie.
I don't care. In terms of character, no, at the core of it, there was a potential for characterization, and they left it a hanging thread.
You can't tell me if DreamWorks or Pixar would have had this movie, they would have at least taken at least some opportunity to explore a theme of some sort. Because this movie, I mean, like, you know, the only theme they do explore a theme. Don't get me wrong, but it's like
do they? Hold on, no. Do they? Yeah. What's the theme they explore?
Never give up, dude.
It's such a lame theme.
No, but that's what I was gonna say. It's like it's man, I could go turn on Cartoon Network right now and watch
a character arc. Sure, for a theme for a whole movie. That's this. Nah.
Yeah, I know. That's the thing, is that like it would have been great. Like, you know, that's the thing. I was like, you know, I would love Mario and Luigi actually in this like movie together and show that brotherly love and everything and support of one another. But then I was like, man, it's Illumination. That means they gotta try a bit more.
They were even pulling out like some Saturday Night Fever shit, where it's just like Italian family from Brooklyn, literally in Brooklyn, like around a dinner table, and they're all like smacking each other, whatever. And it's like, that's one of my favorite scenes from Saturday Night Fever, which is one of my favorite films of all time. Yeah. Which is just where John Travolta is getting just shat on by his family. Yeah. American Italian family. Yeah, keep going, man.
So like, man, people are probably like, man, is this movie 1 star? Let me say some other positives real quick, because we're gonna be butting up against OT at this point.
We're very long-winded, and I knew we were gonna.
I knew we were gonna too.
We both play video games up the ass.
That's kind of why I was even telling Steve, I almost want to cut the show early and be like, look, we'll talk about Max next week. What was I gonna say? Here's some other positives. The action scenes in this movie actually kick ass, man. They are really good. They have kinetic energy to them. You feel like the impact. The Rainbow Road chase sequence was really cool. And I'm not just saying it because it took place on Rainbow Road. The actual, like, how they took Mario Kart in general, going upside down, the items and everything, the destruction that happens. I actually thought they did a really cool job with it. I love the Donkey Kong and Mario fight, kind of referencing back to when they first fought each other. You know, he's throwing barrels at him. They're on these like thin little iron platforms and everything. I really enjoyed the action scenes in this movie. There's one thing I'll say. I'm like, all right, Illumination, you actually have something here when it comes to action.
Yeah. Let me say, so what you're saying for action, let me say this for the music, and it's a love-hate thing. The music, the original score here, composed by Brian Taylor, who has done scores for a lot of movies that you might gawk at, like, or might like roll your eyes at, like 7 installments of Fast and Furious, among other things. But he's also done great things like Crazy Rich Asians. I thought the score for what, did he do Yellowstone? Wow. Okay, I'm actually surprised by that too. But regardless, for that, the original composed music is a loving tribute to the music of Mario Brothers.
Yes, it is.
Beyond functionally serving as the music for this movie, but it is very well done, and I was like, that was the most like nostalgic, like Disney moment, the most whimsical moments for me is where they play into that whimsy,
Yeah.
they play into that history. The themes by Koji Kondo, I was loving the music. That's probably the strongest part, kinda.
Donkey Kong coming out with his DK rap, one of the best cinematic moments of my entire life.
As a tribute, hey, you know what? Not a tribute, a reference. As a reference, hey, you know what? I'll take it. What I effing hated about this score was the cheap
needle
and
drops,
inexcusable use of "I Need a Hero,"
Dude.
"Thunderstruck," no sleep till Brooklyn, because they're in Brooklyn, right? I'm like, what a waste of time. What a waste of my ears. What a waste of moments.
What
right?
made that training sequence much more unbearable was "I Need a Hero."
Was that song?
Yeah, like it was like,
oh,
dude,
that's some
I'm
Illumination
like, I'm sorry,
shit,
dude. I'm like, but Shrek 2 has you beat, no comparison. Because when Shrek did it, even then, like I go back and I watch the Shrek movies, and I'm like,
okay, make your point.
I was gonna say, I go back and I watch the Shrek movies, and at the time, yeah, as a kid, I loved it. But like looking back on it now, I'm like, you know what? It sucks to say, but it hasn't aged the best, honestly.
No. Let me say, I think you're forgetting the context. I think you're letting 2023.
Oh, because the fairy godmother
color.
sung it?
No, it's not even that. No. The music of the original Shrek movie in 2001, I don't know. I don't care. The music in that movie, and even Shrek 2, the reason why it works so effing well, the use of like borrowed songs or whatever, is because it's a complete pivot, a complete, what's the word I'm thinking of? Upending, a complete whatever of the Disney formula. The use of whimsy, of the use of, I love the word whimsy today, I guess.
Whimsical,
the word of the whimsical, the Disney score, whatever. When Shrek kicks open the door of the outhouse to All Star by Smash Mouth, that was revolutionary for that kind of animation, for that kind of movie, for that kind of animated, fairy tale adventure. That was that is legendary of the time. And one of the reasons why I don't like the Shrek musical is because they ditch that and they actually do Disney shit in the Shrek musical. And I'm like, you're completely defeating the purpose of why that was fun to be, why that was such a such a gear shift, in the first place, in its place in animation of that time. Nowadays, it's so overdone. It's so easy to do, right? The trick was cheap, but it was very effective and revolutionary and very cleverly used. Now it's just cheap, period.
Yeah.
And it's annoying and I hate it.
Yeah.
And it's the most obvious choice too. It's like, oh, I need a hero because the hero is like on his hero's journey or whatever. Thunderstruck because it's a cool. And it's like, there were great moments in that montage too. Like when Toad pulls up in the freaking like 10-foot truck or whatever, like 4x4. I was like, okay, that's pretty, or 16x60, whatever. Like that was actually really funny. But the fact that you use these stupid ass songs, overdone songs, freaking Adam G rolling in his grave, and another use of No Sleep Till Brooklyn. It's like, come on, dude. That was the original music was my favorite moments, and the licensed music was
Yeah.
my most
That, like I
hated
said, I
moment.
love the score of this movie. I do not like the soundtrack. The soundtrack is
Yeah.
just lazy. It's not clever. It's not implemented clever any sort of way. It's the most overused songs in almost any kid's property. Man, if they would have put in Viva la Vida Loca, I would have lost it. I would have started screaming in the theater, like, let me out. um, another positive I'll have here. I didn't.
Subverting your
There we
expectations.
go.
That's the
Okay,
phrase I
I
was
thought
looking
that's
for.
what you were trying to go for, but I was like, I'll just let him go on with it. I thought the comedy in this movie actually worked well for the most part. There's a few instances of like slow mo and like
I'll take it or leave it.
typical elimination stuff, but for the most part, I thought the comedy actually worked really well, especially the stuff with Bowser.
That's the only part
any
where
of
it
the
really
stuff that
worked.
takes place not even just with Bowser, but at the Bowser Castle had me actually laughing my ass off. Nihilistic Luma was like one of my favorite like side characters.
That was that was such a joke I did not see coming, and I was there for it. That's the kind of subversion.
Yeah,
Not to overuse that word again, but that was the kind of subversion I'm there for.
because I love her because she'll say that little kid.
Because it's from Galaxy. That character's from Galaxy,
That
right?
character's
And
from
there's no
Galaxy, yeah.
characterization whatsoever.
Nothing. They don't have a mouse in the game.
Yeah, and then that was the character that you bring to the. That's how you bring that character to the screen. Love it. I love it.
What was it? That little kid that voiced them. That he's getting. He's a hero. I forgot who voiced.
It's
them.
a real kid too.
It's a
That's
real-
how
yeah.
you know.
They're getting so many accolades for like just like the little tidbits. Because one of my favorite moments in the movie is like they bring in the Kongs get captured and then they're in there as well and. And then like he'll say something so dark and twisted like, well, life has no meaning, all that's left is really just to die and everything. And then like it zooms out to everybody captured like, whoa, okay, all right, here he goes again, all right. Like, anyways, man, like, look, I think we should probably wrap up with our final thoughts and then try to speed run through this Warner Bros. Discovery thing real quick. I'll go first and I'll pass it off to you. Overall, despite me and Dom like really ripping into this movie at points, despite what you may think, I actually had a fun time with it. This is setting myself away from the experience I had with my friends, Dom being there included as well, who can attest to this. The experience we had was great. The film itself was just good. I wanted a bit more, and it sucks to say as like a Mario fan, a lot of us, I think,
You don't need more. I think you just needed it done differently.
maybe done differently. Like, and by more, I mean just a little bit more effort in some ways with characters, with a story, stuff like that. And I know, like, I've talked to so many people. I had one friend who kind of like told me off because I said, "Yeah, I just kind of wanted more of a story with the Mario movie." He told me, "Well, it's Mario. What were you expecting?" And I almost wanted to tell him, "Well, yeah, us Mario fans, we're almost like too easy to please at some point, man. They could put a damn stupid hat on top of a rock, and we'd be like, it's a Mario rock." So I wanted just a bit more when it came to this, especially with it being the return to cinema for him. I understand why they played it safe, and I'll let it slide, of course, because at the end of the day, I did have a good time with it. I was smiling throughout. I loved how it looked. I loved the action scenes, and there's a ton of them in this movie too. If anything, I'm glad it was an hour and 30 minutes, because if this was 2 hours like Minions: The Rise of Gru was, or any of the other previous films, it probably would have been pushing it for me. But it moves along quick. It gets in and out. There's no reason why a Mario movie has to be longer than that if this is all it's going to do from Illumination. For me, it is 3 out of 4 stars, but I mean, it barely got that other half of the third star in there. I really had to think about it. I was like, man, I might give it 2.5. I might give it just a solid 3. But I really think about all the good stuff of this movie and how much it really did kind of just swing Nintendo back in. But you damn well expect that with this sequel, I'm expecting them to do something a little bit differently and probably put in just a bit more effort. And if Miyamoto's got to go in there and just slap him around some more in Japanese, I'm down for it.
2023 Super Mario Brothers movie is a movie that makes you think this could have been more. I'll even use your more. Not more color, not more detail in the animation. Holy crap, that hair. Just more effort. And it makes you think what could have been.
Yeah.
Right? People who are giving it 0% on Rotten Tomatoes. I don't think it deserves the 48%
No,
or whatever
no,
on
I
Rotten
don't think
Tomatoes is now.
to me. I
It's
mean,
very polarizing.
I know
If
that's
you
a
love,
collection of reviews, but if I were to give it a percentage score, it's like a 70.
if you unabashedly, completely worship this movie, I think you need to maybe put some healthy stuff in your movie diet. If you hated this movie, touch grass. But as a product, foundational product for this franchise that's going to launch 37 Mario movies in the future, in conjunction with the parks opening up in Japan, already opened up in Japan and Florida, and the franchise of the video game. It's in that context, actually, I think it's a little concerning because I think it might get derivative beyond that, but it is solid. I was on the same fence as you, but from 2.5 to 2, and I think 2 is a little too mean there. So I say it just goes into 2.5 out of 4 stars. Just please, for the love of God, don't use that licensed music ever again.
They're gonna. I know they will.
You have an amazing repertoire of everything, Nintendo. Characters, design, story templates, but most of all, your effing music. There is an emerging jazz scene, particularly in New York, just focused around video game / specifically Nintendo music. That's how powerful it is, right? You don't need to dilute it with this American junk, for your soundtracks. But yeah, 2.5 out of 4 stars. This is a solid, good time.
Yeah. We're gonna speed run. I really do mean this through because I'm not going into another intermission and coming back to talk about this. We're gonna get through this real quick. But today, Warner Bros. Discovery unveiled the new streaming service. Well, it's not really new. The rebranded streaming service, just called Max. The HBO Max, if you don't know, is just gonna become Max due to Discovery acquiring Warner Brothers. This shift is going to happen on May 23rd, and the platform is going to combine, your scripted dramas of HBO like Succession, White Lotus, House of Dragons, with Discovery's unscripted staples like cooking, home improvement, and survival shows. So while you're watching House of Dragons Season 2 or The Last of Us, right after you can go watch The Real Housewives of New Jersey, or you can go watch, I don't know, the Home Improvement show. I don't watch Discovery, so I might have something new to watch when this happens eventually. One of the good things here is that pricing for the most part is going to remain the same, as current HBO Max plans are $9.99 per month with commercials and $15.99 per month without ads. But a new tier called Max Ultimate Ad Free, which is going to be $20. You can go up to 4K. You can download up to 100 offline titles, so you have something with you when you travel. And you can have 4 concurrent streams up at once, which if I may be wrong on this, but I don't think HBO Max actually limited that. I think if you can have like up to as many streams off of one account, I think as much as you want, or you could have originally always done 4, no matter which tier you paid for, but now they're limiting it similar to what Netflix does with their tier plan. What is the other thing I wanted to come up on this? Well, Dom, do you have any initial thoughts here about the whole thing? I mean, it wasn't anything we haven't already covered with this service plan. We've been talking about this. This has kind of been like the new Mount Rushmore of Sleepless with Steve. The next head we've added in is HBO Max / Discovery news. Do you have anything you want to add to this?
My initial thoughts are all my thoughts. Zaslav's hammer strikes again, and this is some stupid ass branding. But it's just what we have to live with. As soon as the acquisition happened, or the merger, I should say, this is exactly what we were getting. How much do you pay for Max, Joe?
Of course I do, Dom. I pay my $15.99 a month.
It is $15.99. It is $15.99 currently.
Look,
but it's gonna be up to $20 now, ad free, according to the article.
No. The $15.99 is still staying there. So it's gonna be 3 tiers. There's an ad tier where you can watch, where 2 people can watch on one account at the same time, but it has ads for $10. There's a $15.99 tier with no ads, only 2 concurrent viewers at once. And then the third tier is their 4K tier and everything with no ads and whatnot. Yeah.
Just the fact that they're stripping HBO away from it altogether is just so ridiculous. Now, personally, if they had put Discovery Plus's content onto HBO Max, I actually wouldn't have minded. I don't think there's a problem with putting it together because at the end of the day, it's more stuff for me to just pull out of my ass and be like, oh, okay, I actually do, for whatever reason, for Steve, for other things, I actually need to watch. Like, I need to get Real Housewives somehow, some way. And if someone's visiting, I don't know. And if I happen to be paying Max for it, it's like, oh, okay, that's nice. So I don't mind the dilution of the libraries there, but the fact that they're keeping it separate anyway while removing the HBO. What the hell kind of name is Max?
I know it's a
why would you strip
name.
it if you're not even gonna add anything to it? You're taking away the prestige. HBO is one of the most prestigious names in television and home entertainment. Not to be a shill, but am I speaking in lies here? No, it's legendary at this point, built up from decades of hard work and content getting there, with notable exceptions, I'm sure. But yeah, it's Zaslav Hammer, dude.
Yeah, I mean, for my whole thing about it, I was just looking over my notes on my phone that I took while I was at work while reading this article. Yeah, I also think the name is terrible. Just the name Max. I think HBO gives it much more of a brand recognition because you hear HBO and immediately what comes to your mind: Sopranos, Game of Thrones, Last of Us for some people. That was one of the biggest shows that was streaming this year. So taking that away, it's like, Max, what the hell is that? And then you find out, like, oh, it's HBO stuff. Okay, I have to get the Max streaming service and everything. I'm sure people who have HBO Max won't get too lost, but people who probably just watch HBO normally are gonna look at Max and be like, what the hell is that?
The big question here coming out of this article, unless it's answered here and I missed it, but the big question here, the open-ended question is, what the hell are they gonna add to this thing, to Max, that prompted them to take HBO away?
It's just
because even for Zaslav, I can't imagine him being so petty, being like, screw HBO, the brand, I'm going to take it off just for the hell of it. No, they're adding something to it to prompt them to remove HBO from the name.
And here's the thing I wanted to bring up, and I'll kind of even touch on your point as well. They're really just only adding Discovery stuff to it. But here's the fucking funny part. The Discovery app is remaining untouched.
Yeah. That's what I'm getting at.
It's like, well, then what's the point? Like, it's like that app is still going to exist out there and have all of Discovery's like streaming shows and whatnot.
Do you just want your kids on Discovery Plus to not watch The Sopranos, all the naked parts in Sopranos? No. One, you have parental controls, and two, it doesn't matter. And three, they got crazy stuff on Discovery now, right? Yeah. So it's like, I don't know. It's all reality.
So, yeah, it's just
either combine it or don't.
It's just
keep the name, keep the goddamn name.
It's again with this whole thing when it comes to HBO Max. We talked about it previously. We were much more worried because as of now, they haven't removed much off of HBO Max like they did when they first acquired it. When they first acquired this thing, a lot of Max originals got axed, never to be seen again.
Yeah.
A movie that we reviewed on Sleepless with Steve, American Pickle, you can't find that anywhere. It's gone forever. It's lost.
Yeah. Well, we'll wrap it up there because that's really a question for Steve to answer.
Yeah, true.
The Steve I like.
Anyways, that about does it here for Sleepless with Steve. We'll be back next week covering the movie Air, directed by Ben Affleck, starring Ben Affleck, Matt Damon, Chris Tucker, Marlon Wayans, Viola Davis, so many more people in this movie. The cast list is very long, and I'm looking forward to talking about it. We'll see you back here next week on Sleepless with Steve. What did I say last time? See you at the movies? Yeah, we're going with that one again. Have a good day.